magic.
The first call today.
Hello, children. Here I am again with the picture book. Are you ready to look at it? Let's open it and see what's inside, shall we?
In 1951, the BBC made one of its most daring appointments. It chose Frida Lindström, a feminist and ex-suffragette, to be head of its new children's television service. In her spare time, Frida used to drive her beloved silver Jaguar around the lanes of rural Kent. It made a change from the bumpy ride she was often having at work.
Before Frida came to Lime Grove, children's television was not much more than just sort of wallpaper. She was a formidable character, Frida, and she was the one that really set children's programmes up in television. She made a dramatic difference. She invented children's television.
Frida Lindström's inventions would shape British children's TV for the next 60 years. When children's television was in its infancy, it ranked low in the priorities of broadcasters. It was just something to keep the kids amused. But thanks to the passion, perseverance and creativity of some very resourceful programme makers, children's TV is a Cinderella service no longer. Today's producers offer more imaginative, sophisticated and daring programmes than ever before. They owe much to the pioneers of children's programming, who created formats and characters that turned it into one of the most successful, best-loved and lucrative of all TV genres. But it could have been so different. When the BBC launched its TV service in 1936, there were no dedicated programmes for children. All shows were aimed at the whole family. Even Mickey Mouse, the last programme transmitted before the service was shut down at the outbreak of the Second World War.
Through him, Annette Mills reached the hearts of countless children and
When
grown-ups.
television did return in 1946, the new star was not a mouse, but a mule.
Beware! Dick Muffin waves his tail. He rounds them up and he tracks them down, follows them round and round the town.
Dick Muffin the Mule was one of the first and most successful double acts in children's TV history, though that was mainly due to his human sidekick, Annette Mills. Muffin was a hit, so was television. But by the late 1940s, as the medium grew in popularity among children, critics were already raising concerns.
It was seen to grab their attention. It was seen to dominate the sitting room space. It stopped people from talking. It stopped families from having meals in the dining room or in the kitchen. These concerns came from psychologists, educationalists, but also from dentists. Dentists were concerned with malocclusion, jaw displacement. The BBC picked up on this and actually put out a broadcast, a short broadcast, actually warning children not to lie on the floor with their head in their hands.
As if inflicting damage on the jawlines of the young wasn't enough, the BBC was also accused of producing programmes inappropriate for developing minds. The corporation was keen to show it was taking criticism of its output seriously. This would have unfortunate repercussions for the first head of the children's service, Cecil Madden.
Now, cameras, please. Here are the instructions. We're using all three...
He'd been in television right from its very opening night, specialising in song and dance shows.
Let the dinner dishes go and follow.
But the corporation decided to remain faithful to the values of its first Director General, Lord Reith. the nation's children should be educated just as much as entertained.
So you can shout.
In 1951, they shunted Madden aside and replaced him with 57-year-old Frida Lindström, the producer of radio programs for schools. It was to prove the challenge of her life. In 1950, food and petrol was still rationed. Houses were in short supply. Britain was a shell-shocked country. The children of the 50s were growing up in a world where the threat of war, this time a terrifying nuclear conflict, was ever present.
We have seen what the effects of an airburst atomic bomb, heat, radiation and blast might do to a typical British city. Let us now apply these effects to the population of that city and see what might happen to them.
Britain's children were growing up in an age of insecurity and austerity. But on a leafy estate in the glorious Kent countryside, life was carrying on much as it had done for centuries. Frida Lindström lived in Chartwell Cottage, just a short walk from the main house on the estate, the home of the Conservative Prime Minister and Britain's revered war leader, Winston Churchill. In Chartwell, Frida started devising a television service for children that looked back to the certainties of the past. For the very young, she wanted nothing that would disturb the safe routines of the family. In their world, there shouldn't be anything as noisy, anarchic or violent as a cartoon. Out went Disney, in came the safe and silent world of puppets.
She came in one day from the woodshed with a flower pot in her hand and said, "I've had an idea for another program." And that was the beginning of the Flower Pot Men.
Once upon a time, there was a little house. And all around the house was a beautiful garden.
Bill and Ben would become a children's classic, as did their little friend, whose squeal became one of the most imitated sounds in British TV history.
Weed! Weed! The charm of it was this setting of this garden shed, you know, with all the flower pots around, and the gardener who popped off for his lunch, and then he came, and the little weed would come to life in between the two flower pot men, you know.
But Bill suddenly remembered that he left his stick behind, so he went back to fetch it. And what do you think he saw? A big white squirrel sitting in the basket and eating some of the vegetables.
There was no bad language, there was nothing there that was threatening, and I suppose in those days there wasn't so much anyway, but even so, I think the content was always so innocent. And the children just loved it, and the parents were very happy with that. I think that's possibly what Frida was getting at.
Frida Lindström's Flower Pot Men, set in an innocent, intrusion-free rural garden, was an immediate hit with young children and their parents. But another programme she dreamt up at Chartwell proved to be even more popular.
One day she said she'd come up with an idea for a programme, and she was going to dress him in a clown suit, striped blue and white. So that was the beginning of Andy Pandy.
There he is. Hello, Andy Pandy.
The Flower Pot Men lived in the shed, but Andy Pandy lived inside the house. He was silent and obedient, unlike the mischievous Teddy and the ragdoll Looby Loo.
Hello, Teddy. Hello, Looby Loo. Are you happy?